really want to know what's going on. Like, why aren't you talking to me? Like pushing even harder, which makes it, okay, now I'm going to walk out of the room. Okay, why are they leaving? Let me fall in, and it escalates. So everything they're doing, and then you wind up where it's just this loud yelling, seeming nagging, and someone like locked in another side of the house to try to get away from it. But again, the reason they're pursuing is because you won't tell them what's going on. But also the reason they won't tell you what's going on is because you're pursuing so intensely. Again, great intentions stuck. And you see them kind of everywhere. I mean, I have so many, but we'll just do kind of one more. So you can have them even just with the substances. So someone potentially drinking to cope with stress. And because of this, they're getting behind at work, missing meetings. Maybe they're missing school obligations if they're younger, just family obligations, things like that. It's disruptive to their life. That's just, they're facing consequences, whether it's legal, financial, familial, whatever it might be, which of course drives up more conflict, more arguments, more issues at work, maybe corrective action, things like that, and then needing to drink more to kind of cope with that stress. So we essentially get stuck kind of in these loops. But I'd been asked to talk about stress. Again, I pre-drew. You guys have seen my brain drawings. You know how they are. But stress is meant to be a start and stop process. It's not meant to be a cycle like some of these other things we talk about. It's really meant to be, we get triggered, our fight or flight system, that system I talked about, when we're doing with substance use and under stress goes off, that's our amygdala. That is, we'll use a car kind of metaphor throughout. That is the gas pedal. So it hits the gas pedal, there's a threat, there's something dangerous going on, and it activates our engine, which is our HPA axis, which is basically just a hormone system that just sends everything everywhere. It is prepping you for battle. It is fight or flight, right? It assumes, that you need to attack, fight off a bear, escape a tiger, something pretty drastic. So, I mean, it is adjusting your blood, your cortisol, your oxygen, all of these things and getting them ready. Those eventually reach our hippocampus, and once those signals get there, it goes, oh, time to stop. The hormones have made it through, shut everything down. That's our brakes. And then it also pays attention to what happened during that time. Where were we? What was it? So we can potentially avoid that. And then we learn from it. Our prefrontal cortex is processing, okay, did I overreact? Did I underreact? How should I adjust to maybe avoid this threat in the future? Or do I not need to feel threatened because it went well? So maybe like the first time, a kid goes off a diving board, the stress response versus later. They can evaluate it after everything calms down, decide, okay, that wasn't so scary, it was actually fun, have a totally different response. So it's meant to be just kind of a one and done system. Chronic stress is cyclical. It doesn't function the way it's supposed to. When we are dealing with a family member or a loved one, or anything that's creating chronic stress, it's essentially like holding that gas pedal down to the floor as hard as we can. And one of the things that really sets off our stress systems is unpredictability. If there's people where we feel like we have to walk on eggshells or we're unsure what their behavior is going to look like, the amygdala goes off in a very, very strong way, very, very quick to the gas pedal, which is, if you've had a loved one with addiction, it is extremely unpredictable. When are they going to be home? How much are they going to use or drink? Will things get better? What's the next call from the treatment center? There's just so many unknowns that it's really easy to be stuck in that state all the time. But you're effectively holding the gas pedal down. And what happens is, the more that pedal's held down, that part of the brain actually gets stronger, builds more connections, and you get a gas pedal that's sending more and more of a signal. You get a more responsive throttle response than you did before. Just like if you were to use a muscle a lot, it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Your gas pedal, unfortunately, gets really, really strong. So then the slightest thing set it off, and set it off bigger than they ever would before. The part of your brain that gets the signals that say, all right, time to hit the brakes, the signals made it through, it's getting hit with so much cortisol, it gets overwhelmed. In that part of our brain, the hippocampus actually shrinks. So under common stress, that part of your brain's deteriorating, it's getting smaller, it's less and less capable of being able to see those signals come through, trying to tell you, hey, we need to relax, we need to go this off. So you have a gas pedal that's more effective and essentially glued to the floor, and you have a brake pedal that's slowly giving out. And the more that happens, the stronger each get at kind of that problem. So it really, really starts to cycle. And then your prefrontal cortex, the driver at the front, same thing. It's oxygen's not getting routed to it, so you're essentially like become blindfolded at the wheel of a car, with a hypersensitive stuck gas pedal and a non-working brake pedal, and a blindfold gets put over your eyes, and you're trying to essentially navigate that, which in and of itself creates more stress. And that creates kind of the same systems recursion I was talking about. So our gas pedal's floored. We're essentially running on race fuel. Like every hormone coming out is just the most intense it's ever been. The brakes are weakened, and the driver can't think and process. So we get what's called allostatic load. The level of peak stress we feel goes up and up and up. And people get to where, you know, their resting heart rate is their old high heart rate. And what used to look like relaxed comes long gone. And the new closest baseline you can get is, you know, what the highest level of stress was 2 years ago. And the problematic part is it compounds. The more you subject yourself to that stress, the more this imbalance continues to happen. We get worse at decisions, we get quicker to stress and fight or flight, and our brakes take longer and longer to do kind of anything at all. It sounds fun, right? This is a great time, yeah.
Drew, can I ask
yeah,
you
no,
a question?
please do.
So going with that metaphor here,
Yes.
I have this image here in my head of like road rage. Like,
Yeah.
if anyone's ever been in road rage, we all can agree that it was the other person's fault.
Of course.
Right? So,
Of course. Of course.
So in families where they have this dynamic where both of them are drivers in the car, is there an awareness that's happening either for the family member in addiction or the family member trying to support if they're both with stuck pedals?
I think the awareness has to come in, it's kind of back here. It's being able to look at, where do I have control? And we have areas that we can control, and we have areas that we can influence. And typically we're putting all of our energy in what we can't control. Like, I want them to stop using. I want them to stop drinking. We can't control that ultimately. We can do a lot of things to influence it, but it usually is working on ourselves, the own work that we can do, the other relationships that are in, focusing on your own self-care and stress reduction. But it's very hard because for a lot of people that feels very selfish, right? This is the biggest need. This is where the attention needs to go, but it's not something that we can directly control. And it tends to do quite the opposite when people overly focus on the thing that they can't change. Especially if we're trying to model, I want my loved one to know how to handle stress, to know how to cope, to know how to make positive decisions. We should be able to stop and reflect, okay, but am I doing that in this stress? Or am I up all night worried sick? Am I not taking care of myself? Am I not eating? Am I not doing it? And families start to realize, like, oh, I'm not practicing any of the things I want them to do. But I understand why it's so hard to want to put, yourself first. But it's not a matter of priority. It's just that's what you can control.
How hard is it for a family member to detach from that normal go-to process at the second that something triggers that stress, that they move away from trying to control a situation to what you're talking about being an influence?
Really hard, honestly, at first, because again, these are consider different parts of the brain just like muscles, and the more you exercise and use them, the better they get, right? So early on, it doesn't go well. It's challenging. You try to meditate, you try to exercise, you try breathing exercises, it doesn't go well. Unfortunately, the brain is really good at overreacting, getting upset, and being stressed out at those points. But the more consistently you practice and engage in those different techniques and different things that you can do, the stronger they come, the better they become, all of that.
What's the first step when you work with families and they come in and they may say, and I don't know if you've heard this, but I see where the problem is. It's my family member. They've been using this long. Help us help them. But you're seeing... I
try to draw it into a circle. I really do. And the part I want to work with families so much is when I say focusing on the fact, and again, it's not to say punishment is bad. You have some families where it's enabling and there needs to be more boundaries. It's unfortunately, it's a very problem-focused thing. If we're in the system, the only thing I know working with that family is that whatever we're doing isn't working. So we have to try different things, and let's figure out what those might be, things that we could potentially do that would be completely different. And the hardest part is just not creating that sense of blame, right? Just because we're having you focus here, we're talking about it, I don't want them to hear saying, and that's because of you, and had you not done this wouldn't have happened. That's not how it works. In the same way when I'm working with the patients, it's not that I'm not saying that their family impact hasn't influenced them. this is just the only area you can control, is around when you're having your triggers, cravings, what those are, and let's focus on there. So when you get people bought into a mindset of like, this is just what I can control, and let go of that, and that means it's my fault, or I'm responsible, or I've done something wrong, I think you can really do meaningful work. But there is a lot of felt responsibility, and most things aren't thought of as part of kind of a bigger system, but more cause and effect.
Now, there's a lot of families out there that look at this and counseling, this is the first time they've ever even talked about these issues there. So how do you open up that conversation for those who may have said, counseling, that's for other people, that's not for me, or this kind of support, this is the first time they're diving into these spaces?
Yeah, it's so hard because counseling's just so stigmatized, especially around substance use. I mean, in the same way, like getting a personal trainer doesn't imply that you have horrific health, right? Some people just want the best version of their bodies or the best versions of themselves and want to be able to improve. Counseling in every way is that. It's just how can we make the best of communication, emotion management, emotion regulation, all of these things that are really hard for anyone to do. I mean, the healthiest family systems struggle with these things. So it's really just trying to break down a lot of that stigma and just validate everyone's intentions, because most of it is great intention. They want what's best for each other. It's just not coming out in a way that's effective. But it's not bad, it's not wrong, it's just not working. So how can we find different things that maybe will work better for your family or your loved one, and what that will look like?
And Drew, if you work with communities, whether it's a school, a church, any of these large group communities where they want to help and they want to create a safe environment, what can they do for those families that they see are in this constant pattern?
Creating the space for it. I mean, you really do need to have a space where people can feel like they can talk about these things, not be judged, not felt shame, and connect them with the appropriate resources that can help. So I think just creating an environment where people will talk about it. This affects so many people. I mean, 1 in 5 Americans deal with a substance use disorder directly themselves, and then 1 in 3 Americans with any mental health diagnosis do also. So any depression, anxiety, insomnia. It's a tremendous amount of people that are going through this, but the amount of people that are seeking help or openly talk about it doesn't balance out with that. And I think a lot of that is just due to the unnecessary shame and stigma around it, even though everyone can relate to it. I've yet to meet someone who has not been impacted by addiction in some way.
And Drew, oftentimes we have families that come out and say, well, I'm going to try to Google the right resource. I'm now ready, but then there's a million websites, so much information. How do you guide them? Where would you direct them?
Yeah, there's I personally like findtreatment.gov and websites that are not going to be driven by who's got the most ad dollars, where you can really go through and select like what you're looking for, what level of care, and be able to get those questions, and then also being able to connect with it. I mean, that's something that Phoenix House can do, other people can do, as far as just walking people through like what are the questions to ask and what to know, because it feels very much like a foreign language when you're trying to navigate it. And a lot of times you're on a time crunch, right? It's like, okay, there's a moment of clarity or there's some motivation. We really want to capture it while it's there. I need to know right now what to do.
And Drew, over the last couple of decades, I mean, families change. Trends happen, whether it's drug usage. But what have you seen that's changed over the last couple of decades that you feel families should be aware of when it comes to treatment or patterns, trends that you're seeing?
I do think it's trending the right way. I do think that places to talk about this, just that this was here. I would imagine that this group was not here 10 years ago, right? Or that this could be talked about or would be, broadcast or something that could be so open. So I think that there's a lot less stigma than people think. I still think there's way too much, of course, because there should be none. But I think there's a lot more resources and people that are going to be able to actually relate when people do open up, that they'll be very surprised by their experience. I think they find quite the opposite, that they end up sharing about it at work or something out, and they usually report how many people ended up relating, saying they went through something similar, offering, advice as far as what the resources were that were available to them at that time. It takes someone kind of being brave enough to just kind of open up about it first and be willing to share.
Well, your topic today is stress, brain stress, what families need to know, impact. What else have we not covered or haven't had a chance? I'm sorry, I jumped in. Oh, no,
you're fine. I love your questions. No, they're great. We haven't covered everything, right? No, but It's really a lot of what we talked about. And then I think going into it is just really how do you disrupt these patterns and what do we do to get out of it? So it's figuring out where do we have that control? And I think that it's realizing that focusing on stress and well-being management is the priority, even if it's someone else that's dealing with something that feels far more serious, far more severe. It's not selfish to practice things like self-care in those situations, and it does help them because one, you're modeling what healthy coping looks like, and two, at the inevitable next conflict, you're going to be in a better state of mind. Have you spent the last month really trying to work on your levels of stress, your ability to manage and cope, seeking your own counseling versus not sleeping, not eating, driving yourself crazy for the next month, and then trying to navigate that same conversation. So you end up influencing them more when you kind of let go, and that's kind of how these cycles work. But it's tricky. We're creatures of habit. You'll find that we get pulled back in first. So you get the kid who's like, okay, I'm going to disrupt my pattern. I'm going to go for walks next time I get sad instead of get high. When they come back in that house from the walk, they're not going to be met with, I'm really glad you chose to exercise. That's great. They're probably going to be met with, where'd you go? Why are your eyes red? You look sweaty. What's going on? And the same thing. If the parents aren't trying to punish, they might be, well, why are you asking? Why are you down my back? We try to pull back in. So it takes some persistence to break out, but it really is finding, okay, what are these, what can I do that's different? So if I'm a family member, okay, I always bail them out, or I'm always really hard. Like, what's an alternative? Because odds are something about that is contributing in an indirect way. Again, you're not the cause. No. You're not to blame. It just happens. So being able and willing to effectively do something different.
Is there a sweet spot in terms of time?
Of doing that? It really just depends, like how much you engage in it and what you're doing. But I mean, you can do a tremendous amount in 30 days. I mean, with any habit, as far as you're doing it. I kind of have a list of some things we can talk through that I definitely recommend for stress management. One is the 3 blessings exercise. So taking the time at the end of each day to write down 3 things that you're grateful for has shown a tremendous amount of benefit to well-being. But I say with this, there's 2 things that are really important. One is don't be broad. It's not family. It's not large abstract. It's not health. What's one specific thing you did with your family today or towards your health? And then emphasizing your part, right? Did you make the decision to call them? Did you go outside to enjoy the nice day? So something specific every day, 3 things, write them down, and then the part that you played. Journaling, taking the time to write. A lot of times we don't have the ability to talk about these things, but finding a way to get them out, tremendous amount of benefit. Exercise to any kind. I think a lot of people, if they can't get to the gym for an hour, they don't underestimate a 10-minute walk. Even if it's indoors, just moving around is a tremendous amount of benefit on stress reduction. Mindfulness and meditation, that's typically something that is really hard if you haven't practiced it at first, but people find is a muscle that gets kind of stronger and stronger.
What does that look like for someone who has never heard of mindfulness or meditation?
Yeah, it's really focusing on trying to find a way to be more present in the here and now. A lot of times with stress, we are reevaluating and overthinking things that have already happened, or in just panic about what could potentially happen, all the different ways it could go wrong. We kind of forget, be where my feet are, essentially, and what that's like. So a lot of it, there's guided meditations and things you can find online. There's like apps you can use and download that'll walk you through it and all of that. But it's harder than it sounds, certainly. But being able to do that, be present, be grounded, really focus on breath and breathing. A lot of people don't realize like how much they're kind of in that fight or flight state and what their heart rate and lungs or respiratory rate actually looks like after they've been going through months or years of stress. But it's really hard on the body. And that really helps kind of bring things back, essentially. And then 3-to-1 ratio of like positive thoughts and experiences to interactions. So when you're having a negative interaction, okay, what are 3 repairs I can do, or 3 things I can do? Or if you find yourself having a very consistent negative worry, trying to challenge that or counter that with 3 other things that people can do. Random acts of kindness, like just doing something for the sake of it being nice for strangers without necessarily wanting that kind of like feedback. Or engaging in things that are called like flow state activities. So our hobbies, interests, activities where we lose all sense of like time. So that thing you do where you look down at your watch and you're like, how has 2 hours gone by, whatever it might be. And those are fun because they're so different for what people are. Some people like cooking, that stresses me out. I love building a good Excel workbook. That's a lot of people's like worst nightmare, right? So knowing what yours are and intentionally engaging in those is tremendous. And if you can line up with a job or workplace where you get to do those things more regularly, it makes a huge impact as well.
Great. You mentioned journaling earlier. So for some people who've not done journaling, what does that look like for it to be
Thinking
helpful?
out loud on the paper. I think a lot of people overthink it. Just brain dump. Whatever is going through there, get it out. It starts chaotic, but I promise it will start to settle and make sense. And we think about so many things differently once we've said them out loud or we see them on paper. You just can't restructure and challenge your own thoughts in your head, right? That's where you made them. It's really hard to fix it with the same thing that just made the faulty thought. That's why, a lot of people say, like, as I'm saying that out loud, I realize that doesn't, make sense. Or now that I'm, saying it, I don't know why I've thought that kind of thing.
And Drew, just to be clear, these are practical steps that the family member can do to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and it is taking care of the other. It doesn't feel like it, but it is. Because again, if you've got someone who's dealing with a substance use disorder, it is very healthy for them to see someone journaling regularly, meditating during the day, writing down things that they're grateful for, exercising. That's really healthy for them to watch. Oh, this is an alternate way to cope with stress. It's not healthy for them to watch you, again, not sleep, not function, miss out on all your obligations, destroy your own social relationships, and all of those things happen. It feels counterintuitive, but it really does help. And then, hopefully they do reach out for support, or there's that moment you're going to be in just such a better state to help than you would be had you not been practicing those things kind of during that time. So I promise it's not selfish to do.
Well, this is very straightforward. I mean, and the way you described it, you gave us multiple tools. So we have options to choose on a daily basis, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And it really is a lot of the simple things, but I think a lot of people who are really dealing with chronic stress would have a hard time saying, okay, I'm building these in every single day. It usually is a tremendous amount of overworking, maybe missing out on different obligations. Activities and hobbies get pushed to the side. Meaningful relationships get pushed to the side. Our health, our diet, our sleep routine, all of that kind of tends to take a back seat. Again, good intentions because we care about and love this person that's going through it, but it's not an effective means to help them. If it was that easy, everyone has family members worrying like crazy about them. Like, we wouldn't be dealing with addiction anymore. If worrying worked, we'd all be fine, right? There's plenty of people out there stressed out about it. There's not a lot of people that are, trying to work on, okay, well, what can I do because of kind of that? Just, it feels a little backwards, I think.
Perfect. Well, we are not at that point where we're going to open up the Q&A,
Sure.
but I'm just going to go ahead and prime that up there. So if you're in the audience or you're online and you have a question, just know that we're about to open that moment where we're going to pass around a microphone, take questions from online so that Drew can answer on the fly here for us. But Drew, I didn't want to interrupt. So were there more things that you wanted to share?
I mean, always, but no, I really do think it's good. I mean, all of this comes from a model called called the PERMA model, and it's a positive psychology model. And I think the reason I've been drawn to well-being and positive psychology focus, like most of psychology, all of the research has been focused on everything that can be wrong with us, right? The DSM is just a book of every single conceivable problem you could have and no guidance on solutions, what to do. So Dr. Seligman, starting in the 90s when he became president of the APA, really set out, okay, well, let's study people that thrive in the healthiest of relationships and people that are able to pursue through incredible amounts of adversity or don't get PTSD when we see others that would, and start to put together elements that really create human thriving and flourishing. Yeah. And I think a good amount of that is really the antidote to these situations. We're spending so much time, okay, not using, not relapsing, not this, but painting a picture of what we're trying to move towards and that well-being and what it looks like, and then very usable tools to get there that have been shown to help create that in people's lives and the benefits they've seen from people that do these things versus don't, of how additive it really is.
And Drew, one last question,
Yeah.
and while we get the microphone going here, um, once change starts to happen in a family, and there's that moment where maybe the family member comes back and says, "Hey, you're doing something different. I'm seeing you journal.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready for some help." It can be a scary moment for family members because they think, if this doesn't work out, I mean, this is a great moment, but is there such a thing where family members feel fear that what we're doing today is working, but then tomorrow, like one step forward, two steps back, kind of a thing? Do you see that kind of relapse into some of these old patterns?
I see that. I see that feeling. I see that, like, if I don't do the exact right thing, I mess it up, or if I don't say or do exactly what I need to do, they're going to return. And you don't have that level of control over this other person. If you did, you would have snapped your fingers and quote unquote fixed it or solved this for them forever ago. So in the same regard, we can't mess it up that bad too. I mean, just keep doing what's working. I think reinforcing it is great. I'm so glad you're getting help. I'm so glad that you're willing to do it. I think the more positive reinforcement you lump around it, the more they're going to be willing to do that again if there ends up being steps back. Well, I remember last time I went, it was really well received. So, there's not going to be a fear on their end to come do it again. I think it's just trying to get them connected with the right professionals and the right resources, and then just really trying to reinforce positively with them, their willingness to step forward and kind of ask for help and support. It's not, we don't want to be like, oh, finally about time. That's not going to help. But if you're really trying, it's pretty hard to.
Yeah, and what you're describing is just a change in a lot of these cycles that are happening.
Yes.
Practical steps that can introduce that change, but also the expectation that we're doing this work, but not to be discouraged.
Yes.
If something doesn't go well one day or the next day, but just continue with this new.
Yeah, relapse is common, but it is with any medical disease and condition, right? Like relapse rates for substance use are lower than asthmatics having relapses into asthma attacks, or people with hypertension have, like, when there's a return to hypertension or return to symptoms of asthma, that's a relapse. We don't think of that in such a negative way, like how dare they have another asthma attack, or their blood pressure do what it did. I don't understand why we do it with addictions. Okay, we need to adjust the treatment plan. We found something that worked for a while, but we need to adjust it in the same way we would. Okay, maybe new inhaler, or new this, or new that, or new medicine. Like it's common, but it's actually less common than most other diseases.
Less common than other
Yes,
diseases.
yes.
So we're talking about more hope. It's
Absolutely.
much
That's a great word. Yeah, love that word. Yeah, absolutely. And not, it's just not thinking of it so black and white. And I know it's hard not to, right? Like it's such an overwhelming and powerful thing, and we want it to move the right way, but progress isn't quite so linear, right? It's, as long as we're trending overall in the right way, we're okay. But it's not gonna be smooth sailing, but we're sailing. Yeah.
Well, on that note, we are opening now the space here for questions. So want to remind that this is an anonymous space, so you are welcome to ask questions online or in person. And of course, the cameras are focused here, so we also ask that if you do have a question, you do share that. We can talk about a friend or a loved one, and we'll avoid any type of personal identifying information. But other than that, first questions, microphone is going around.
Thank you so much for coming back, Drew. So I was just listening to you, and I had this thought that kept coming up. If you are the loved one, if I'm the loved one, and I decide I'm going to start doing some things differently, I want to change the dance, do I tell my loved one that I'm going to be exhibiting some different behaviors, I'm going to be trying some different things? Is this something you talk with them about, or you just begin to do it?
I think you can. I mean, evaluate if it's productive, right? And I think that's the delivery, right? If it's just, which I'm not saying you're going to do this, was like, well, I gotta change, nothing I do works, so I'm going to change it up, right? But if it's able to, even the way you're able to talk about it feels different, I think that can be good. But again, a lot of people are tempted to pull back in anyways, so it might get interpreted as like, oh, this is just another form of whatever the old pattern was, and you just kind of have to like roll with that and keep doing it anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So Drew, thanks for coming back. My mind is blown again as it was the last time you were here. I don't know if this is a question, comment, or combo, but what I see on the screen, these steps, it's like a offensive plan of action.
Yes.
And for the person being affected by addiction, because the person that is addicted is either trying to get help maybe, or they're going through these motions, and they have a plan inside that they're acting out as you just went in the circle.
Yes.
But a lot of times, I mean, I know for me, I can only speak from my experience, I had no plan. I'm reacting to everything that's being thrown at me, and the only thing you're going to do without knowledge is you're just going to react in a bad way.
Right.
And thinking somebody's doing this to me. Why is this happening to me? I love this person. They shouldn't be doing this. And what I got out of that one screen so impressive is it's okay for you, the person that's being affected, to have a game plan, a
Yes.
plan of attack of every day of how you're going to go about it. And whether you tell the person or enlighten them, or you find a moment to enlighten them after you've laid a few bricks, I just think it's unbelievable that I just don't think this information is out in the places it needs to be, because I think people won't talk about it and they won't ask the question.
Agreed. Well, your mindset of just like how they could do this to me, I mean, that is driven by stress, and that gets worse the more stressed out we get. We get more on guard, more defensive, more of thinking there's threats all around us, so that it just magnifies that response, which is unproductive for everyone involved. But I like the offensive kind of metaphor you use, because really so much of it becomes about don't relapse prevention, and really trying to shift to like sober living and what does recovery look like and what are the things you're going to do, instead of treatment and family interventions being around. Here's a list of 100 things not to do. And you're like, okay, I'm just sitting here now. I don't know. But if it's like measurable things you can work on every day that move you towards something, instead of just kind of this fear-driven avoidance of all these things we're not supposed to do. And then when one of them inevitably happens, spiraling because we've now done the thing we weren't supposed to do and feeling kind of stuck all over again. Yeah, great comment / question.
We have time for additional question. If there's one more question in the crowd, if you've been thinking about something, again, Drew Dutton, he's the expert here, so he's ready.
Alleged.
So if you are decreasing your allostatic load as the caretaker, as the person who's helping the person who is addicted, could you describe what a healthy homeostasis person looks like?
Just in general.
Just in general.
Oh gosh. I mean, it's kind of all those things going back to normal. Like, this system is truly designed for being in physical danger. And it goes off when we're emotionally upset. We don't like the way someone looked at us. We don't like things that something said. I mean, the system truly should be activated when you're being chased by a wild animal. And it gets activated like in cubicles and like on Instagram, and just all of these kind of like not real threats get our heart rates up and get us so upset. So I think it's seeing the system being used when you actually needed it. You actually needed the boost, And there are times like before a big presentation or before you need to perform athletically, there's times where that HPA axis activation really does help us perform something we need to do. But most of the time it's just firing for emotional or cognitive things where we really don't need it. So more consistency with it going off when you're like, okay, I did need all of those chemicals and like muscle activation for this. It makes sense, kind of thing.
So with that, we're actually going to close up on time. For those of you online, we just want to remind you that you can find us on our website, which is carescommunity.us. There you will find many more resources, including the lineup for our next speaker. So we have speakers going through May 18th. So every Monday we'll be having a speaker. And next week we'll have Eli Yates, who is a member of this community here in Lakeway, who will be talking about holding boundaries while still showing up for the people you love. And Eli's a great friend to our program and has been a consistent member and attendee of actually these Monday sessions since we launched last March. So you're going to want to hear his story. It's a very personal one, and it's one that's very touching in terms of why he comes to this space on a weekly basis. And you'll see other speakers that are on there online. Also, if you're online, you'll notice that we are on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So if you want to see more content like what you saw tonight, Feel free to peruse on any of the social media platforms and like, subscribe, and share, because we want to get the word out. This is a safe community. Again, just a quick reminder that CARES is meant to be a community, to provide education, and to connect people with resources. So with that, Drew, thank you so much for joining us this week again and coming in for a third time. And I hope it won't be too much to bother you a fourth time.
No.
Okay, good,
Yeah,
because there
And
is
we're
so
getting more
much more.
speakers ready.
And we're getting more speakers ready too as well. So Drew from Phoenix House, thank you for joining us here.
Happy to be here.
And last message, again, Drew's still going to be here in the house. So that's the advantage of being here in person, is that you do get to ask him questions here in person. But we're going to go ahead and close up the online portion of this. And again, if this is your first time, whether in person or online, a simple message that we like to share every Monday night. Welcome home. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday. Thank you.